Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. I love it that people take time out of their Sunday and join us. I am looking for my Blog Talk dashboard. Our guest today is a very special guest. I want to make sure that he hears all of the show. My studio, I just need to go in and open his microphone. We were playing a little bit of a song about Pittsburgh, PA, and there was music and a guy singing, and it was just, I don't know if it was something that he made up, but we have been told that we cannot play things like that on our shows. But I wanted to play it to you beforehand because I think it's really, really important. So today we're going to be making a few announcements, but we're going to be talking too about the inability of people who post things on YouTube to be able to post their own stuff. Our guest, like I said, Dr. Mark Davis, MD, he's the author of ObamaCare, Dead on Arrival. All right, today is December 15th, 2013. We're coming to you from the studios of Sound Health in the Institute of Bioacoustic Biology. Our mission on Sound Health Options is to share information and ideas in support of freedom, integrity, and an authentic life. We concentrate on sharing information specifically about self-health, self-responsibility, and support of humanity. We want to put the idea of health back into healthcare. So on our show, we are doing education. This show today with Dr. Davis is education. We are a 501c3 federally registered entity. I want to put this disclaimer on there so they cannot stop this very important show that you're going to be hearing about with Dr. Davis. I want to tell you also that we have a new, oh, can't believe that, my sites. Oh, here it is. We have a new download for you. The download is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We will give you the software and how to use it, and a 2-hour show, a textbook, because we believe people who are coming back from the services who have PTSD are not getting a fair shake. So we put this down there free for you on our site, soundhealthoptions.com. The one that we have up there that they keep bombing is radiation exposure. Now, that's there free also, with a class, with a textbook, with all the software, so you can go in and test yourself. Now, they're doing all they can to take over healthcare. Now, I'm doing all I can to put it back in your hands, and this is part of it. The whole struggle to put the decisions back in your hands. I'm going to encourage, it's the Fifth Amendment, for us to have some kind of constitutional amendment and get rid of some of the garbage and things that are happening, and ObamaCare is just one of them. Our guest, Mark Davis, MD, that I have on my second line here, and we're going to be hopping back and forth on this microphones here. He practices in Maryland, and I'll let him talk about himself because I'm so ticked off about all of this I can hardly stand it. he's written a book, ObamaCare, Dead on Arrival, A Prescription for Disaster. He discusses in detail the horrific legislation concerning health care and what it's done to the bowels of Washington. I want to know why these people who made this law are allowed to exempt themselves. So I'm going to have to move some phones around here. You guys will hear some stumbling and bumbling. I can't move them too close because they'll squeal. Dr. Davis, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on the show.
Tell us about this most precious book, this most needed book that you've written and why you wrote it.
I practiced medicine for over 30 years, stepped aside recently to write and do other things. I'm an internist by training with 2 subspecialties. I grew up in New York City and went to school there. I live in northern Maryland, right near the Pennsylvania border. My daughter was out in Pittsburgh, by the way, and her husband goes to Carnegie Mellon for postgrad. You mentioned Pittsburgh. My intent on writing is I've owned and operated healthcare facilities, specifically nursing homes, emergency facilities, stuff like that, but I have an intricate knowledge from that experience to deal with government and government functionaries and how they parse money, how they try to control the medical practices of doctors and control hospitals, that kind of thing. Noted in the state of Maryland, as an example, the medical board here is 21 members, 8 members are not physicians. So it's basically a political board. The head of the board of medicine here in Maryland is a lawyer, not a doctor. Believe it or not, that could easily be found. Also, the head of the medical society is a lawyer. So we have lawyers entrenching themselves within the medical system. ObamaCare, Dead on Arrival, a Prescription for Disaster, was written because the media itself is one-dimensional and only looks at one. But the Obamacare specifically, is not being fully vetted in the media in general. I've done multiple shows in the last week or two, and some are left-leaning, and they just don't get it. They're talking about exchanges, which are horrific. But the worst part, you have to calm the regulatory structure of phase 2. When they try to implement 2,000 pages of regulations on hospitals, doctors, nursing homes, and whatnot, and that's what's really going to cause people to have problems. And anybody who thinks they're getting medical care for free, think again. This is not going to be what has been advertised by government. Obama, Congress, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, those people. That's why they've exempted themselves, because they know it's not quality care. They know they're not going to get what they need in case they have a dire medical emergency. And we know that. We wrote it in the book. We saw that. I'm president of Davis Book Reviews and Health Nest Review Services. I review stuff for physicians. They send the stuff to me. We've done as much as we had a Nobel laureate did a paper out in New York City and a Nobel to be someone who was nominated, someone didn't get it. And so we do a lot of work in the medical field review. We thought we'd go and look at ObamaCare. And ObamaCare is several thousand pages of regulatory structure. And you know, when the government writes something like that, it should be 6 pages, 8 pages, 10, 12, 15 pages, so people can understand it. This law was written end-to-end by lawyers, with a few doctors thrown in. Emmanuel, the brother of Chicago, is in there, and he's a Harvard theorist, nothing more. He wrote algorithms for this law that are fundamentally flawed, and so they knew up front that the law is going to fail. They knew up front the exchanges are not going to work. They had 3.5 years to implement it. Remember, March 23rd, 2010 is when the major piece of Obamacare legislation came into being. They had that long, and they still can't get it right. So imagine now jumping to the next step, trying to control over 6,000 hospitals, 900,000 physicians, 3 million nurses, millions of more auxiliary people, pharmaceutical companies, thousands of clinics, tens of thousands of doctors' offices. It's impossible. They cannot do it. And what's going to happen is it's going to be a disbursement of health care. People that really need it on the end of life will not be getting it. It'll be concentrated more in the middle of the road. And that's what we see. That's why I wrote this book, to illuminate people's minds through examples, through actual examples, through emergency rooms, where the emergency vehicles cannot get to the people that they need because there are so few of them in some cities. it goes on, and people should look at the book, review the book, see what life really is under Obamacare, and they would understand. They would understand specifically, you're not getting what you need. This is not a survival guide. When I saw someone wrote a very good book called The Obamacare Survival Guide, I don't know what survival he was talking about, because they're taking money away from Medicare, up to $75 billion a year. Someone has to suffer under that. When there's more people introduced to a system mathematically, and there's a set number of providers, something has to give. And what that give is, unfortunately, I do not like the word, is called rationing.
One of the things TJ is saying, OCare, he's calling it, is a stepping stone to what they wanted to initiate. It was designed to fail to initiate the second phase of their plan.
Yeah.
Is that something you can talk about?
Absolutely, yes. He is absolutely correct, and he's a very smart caller. The caller understands, and many people do, it was designed to fail because they want a one-payer system, and I'm sure the caller is aware of that. And then that's what it was. They cannot take this kind of legislative effort done by probably thousands of people, and one side of it collides with some other side of the legislation. So they knew the intricacies of it was so grandiose, and the idea is so large, to try to apply to a population of 360 million people, it had to fail, and it is failing. And they want the government itself to control all health care. They want all private insurance companies to either disappear and or manage the health care system through the government. In other words, they would collect the monies and then disperse them back to the government. The government will tell us what kind of health care we can get. Because they do not believe the American population knows what's best for them. They think they know what's best for them, and they don't. So the call is absolutely right. And if you look at the legislation, they've corrected it a number of times. They've added, subtracted, and Obama specifically has written executive orders to change it. And now he's changing legislation that he's not allowed to do under executive order, which has been talked about by conservative legal types throughout the last year. Yet he's done that because it can't work, and it's not working, and the exchanges are not working. And that's a minimal, unfortunately, the horrible exchanges, but that's a minimal part of all this. It takes up a few pages of the several thousand parts of the document. So that's what we see, and the call is right, very correct.
So it's just about control. I want to make the statement that one of the things that we're doing, we have 71 softwares that people can talk into and get a report back, a management report, on if they've been exposed to radiation or do they have the precursors, biomarkers for cancer. We're trying to set up a network of guardian people that can put information back into the hands of the people. I personally ran into rationing and stupidity in the emergency room. I went in for a inflamed bowel, and they gave me a dose of a Cipro, and since I had blood sugar issues, and that's not allowed, you don't give Cipro to somebody who has a blood sugar issue because it exacerbates symptoms, and they put me in a state of full-blown diabetes just because of their stupidity, and they didn't check anything. So the question here, two things. One, are they just not being careful? They don't care anymore? Is it discouraging to doctors? Is there such dumb regulations that they have to follow those and not do what they know is right? How is this affecting doctors and nurses and just care?
This is an excellent question. Let me elaborate on it. Here in Maryland, it's just a small example. I can talk about most of the states, but here in Maryland, there was a doctor who did stents. Now, a stent is improves on a blockage in an artery, and it opens up the artery. And if you have a blockage, so the standard, the so-called standard of care, if you have an artery blocked 70% or more, you can put a stent in. But people come in with chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, lightheaded, who have 60% blockage, 58%. Some people have had a minor heart attack. But the rule comes in here in Maryland: if it's not 70%, you're a fraud. The doctor needs to have that ability to make that decision to that patient. But now the doctor will be sued. One doctor here, Mark Madej, it made national headlines, and I know him. Thousands of patients now claim that they had needless stents done because the lawyers are telling them they had needless stents. People come in with chest pain. They were all reviewed, all gone through pathological conference. The hospital has its conference on these kind of cases and stuff. It has validated what he did, and out of nowhere now, this guy's being sued horribly because his decision-making capacity is being challenged by lawyers and people who literally jumped in front of a bus to make a couple of bucks. That's just one case. The doctor needs to be able to make the decision, and people come back and say, hey, look, there are bad doctors. There's bad people in every field, and not just in the doctoring field. And if there's doctors taking advantage of their patients in any way, they should be challenged in any number of ways to think of. But not this wholesale attack on the medical community, which is happening right now. Now, the ObamaCare legislation is a fantasy land for lawyers. It empowers them in so many ways to sue us, and which curtails the doctor's right to do what he needs to do to get the patient well. As an example, in the law, people don't know this. The federal government empowered state attorney generals to allow them to hire private attorneys to chase people if they didn't pay the fee, if they're not doing the regulatory structure properly at the job, as an example. They're not paying the penalties, whatever. So private lawyers now can get a piece of the action as well. So you can have a letter from your neighborhood lawyer who's friends with the Attorney General's office, and you're going to be paying him because part of the lawsuit is his legal fee. It's crazy. It shouldn't be, and it's not been told to the public. What the media has done is one-dimensional. They look at the beach and watching the tidal waves come at them, and they're not talking about the tidal waves. They're only talking about the shoreline. And there's a lot of smart people on all kinds of radio sites that I've talked to who ask excellent questions about this because they can't believe it. And I said, it's there, it's coming. Talk to a guy who's at the ground level, me, who wrote the book, who had help from the publishers to put the book out, and we're getting slack all over the place about this book because of the truisms, and they know it's true. The references are checked. The references are right in the paragraphs of the book. Let me give you one more example. In Philadelphia one night, the excellent reporting done by ABC and some of the other local stations about ambulances being insufficient in the city that year, I think it was 2010, and people died that night. There was like 500,000 people in the city, and there were like 3 ambulances on for the whole night. It goes through all the rationale why, if you have lots of people and reduce the sources to take care of them, this is the kind of tragedies that happen. And that's what's going to happen under ObamaCare. The lie, hey, I'm not against Branson south of the border. That's not the issue. The issue is they have to come in here correctly, but they're overburdening the healthcare system. And there needs to be another conduit to take care of those people. But we don't have the system right now. So the system didn't need an overhaul. It needed a tune-up because 85% or more people were at least satisfied with the level of care they were getting. So why do you take apart a system like that? There's only one reason, because they want to have cost structure that controls everything, and that's what's happening. You can't control. Imagine Obama and his people, not physicians, telling us how to put a Band-Aid on, or the multiplicity of things that go on in the room at one night. There's so many like chemotherapy overdose or suicidal people. They're going to try to regulate this stuff. They're crazy. And people should go against it. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Libertarian, or whatever. It's just a bad book. It's having a lot of flack, and the major media will not let me on there for some reason. I see garbage books going up there. This is a very important book, written by a whole bunch of people to put it together, including the Amazon publishers up there. And we're getting a lot of distortion. And if we can get enough people to obtain a copy of this book, we could put commercials either on YouTube and or in reality and show them what the cover shows. The cover shows a cemetery with headstones which say victims of ObamaCare. And people need to see this cover. If there's anything else, it should be flashed all over the place. This is what's coming down the pipe. It's just hard to conceive for people to understand that their own government is working against them, but they are. This is not a conspiracy theory. I'm part of the system that helped make this the system work. As of 900,000 doctors, almost 3 million nurses, nurse practitioners, and nurse practitioners, they are the cement of the system. Without them, there's no system, but the physician is still the bricks. And the doctors are being hit hard. If you don't follow the line, the agenda from the government, you're going to find yourself in a court of law. You're going to find a bevy of doctors against you. You need to take your health care into consideration. You, as an individual, need to take control. You cannot have any government agent do it for you because they're not in your best interest. And now the IRS has huge hammers to come after you if you don't pay your fees, or you don't have the proper, even if you pay your fees and you don't have the proper policy, they still can come after you. It's insane.
Well, it looks like the internet has some control here. Also, I'm going to make a commitment to this. One, we're going to redo your show and put it on our front page. We are looking at your Amazon book, the people that are with us through WebEx. We're looking at your book. I will send you a list of all the radio shows that I know would have you on it, and something people who've had us on. We have links to some national and international shows. This is important. We're going to get this out to the people.
It's very important. It has to get out to the people. And people say, oh, you're making all this money. I registered as a healthcare patient lobbyist in the Fed. I have never used the registration. I keep it current. Somebody went up on Amazon, some guy named Steve, did not do a book review, wrote a political assassination up there. I don't know who he is. He's lucky I don't know who he is. I can tell you that people are starting to get the book and put reviews up there of a positive nature. But Amazon will not take it down for some reason. And we've asked, I've had people who are in the publishing field, in the radio field, people that have syndicated shows, all have contacted Amazon, and they have not still taken that down. And it's a real shame because it deters people from buying and or potentially getting to the book. And that's a real shame what they've done. And I didn't expect this to happen like this. I can understand people being against the author because he wrote a book like this, so review the book and put a negative review up. But you don't put a review up of a person that is completely fallacious and a lot of untruth. And that's what we're up against here. So we need to get this out, and I'm going to do as much media as I can possibly do. And I'm always happy to come on your show or redo it, whatever you choose to do, just to let people know. And just, more people are listening on the internet now than they're listening anywhere else on terrestrial radio. We know that. So some people have huge followings on the internet, and that's great. And I hope it expands and extends. I get my news off the internet. I don't get my news from any terrestrial sources because I don't care if they're all one-sided and whatever it is. I want to balance the opinion. That's what you're going to get from shows like this.
We can put a writing campaign together, say to Fox News and Megyn Kelly. If our people will agree to just write here, I'll get the address, I'll put it out on our forum, and we'll just suggest that your book be there. But the other thing that people are suggesting is that we had something by amendment, that we go in for a constitutional amendment and say things like Congress can't make these laws, Obama can't do this.
Well, Mark Levin wrote a book about liberty amendments and things like that. Bless his soul, he's a great conservative, etc. He worked in the Reagan administration. These people who work for Reagan administration, the radio shows, and he has a huge following. And he needs to understand that the liberty amendments are old stuff. It's just old stuff. ObamaCare is the new stuff. He needs to talk more about it. He needs to get the word out there. I don't know how I would get on his show, and I don't know unless they're going to represent me with them. These kind of national shows should be broadcasting this information instead of cookbooks from actresses and silly things that they've been putting up there. I've never watched it. Megyn Kelly has a great word. She's smart. She was attacked literally by Ezekiel Manuel, one of the architects of ObamaCare on there. And I was just looking at the screen, and I just wanted to squeeze that little guy's neck. Because what a lousy person he was to treat her in such a negative fashion. She was absolutely correct. about Obamacare. They were talking about the construction of Obamacare, about the exchanges failing, and one of the major points that she was saying is you were able to keep your own doctor. We never said that. And they're playing Obama saying that. He's denying it right on the air.
It's just stupidity. I think if they say it enough, people will begin to believe it. We've got people writing to me privately and openly on our chat saying they've gone in and they're putting up a report about the abuse.
Yeah, people could go up there, if they have an Amazon account, and put a kind word up there about the ObamaCare DeadOnArrival prescription for disaster book. It would go a long way to help our cause. And our cause is to get this legislation either amended and or pulled completely. There's a number of groups out there that I approached. I won't give their names right here, right now. I don't want to denigrate anybody. But they claim that they're right-wing, conservative and stuff. But when you look at the nitty-gritty of some of these groups, they're nothing. All they do is raise money for whatever, and you don't even know where that money goes for. And I'm beginning to believe that if we don't, as individuals, every one of us, every one of the chat rooms, everybody listening, doesn't do something, we're going to be stuck with this stuff. We have a very, very bad Congress right now. There are few leaders in there, and we need a change. We need a big change in 2014. 2014 should be a metamorphosis, if you will, for Congress, because what's in there right now we have a bad economic bill that just passed a couple of days ago. We have a bad health care bill that continues. They're considering immigration to allow even more people in here. And if people look at the dynamics of what they're doing, much of it moves to the left, unfortunately. And I think the Congress is just tired of fighting with Obama, who keeps getting his way. If he doesn't get his way one way, he's going to get it just right in the executive order. This is what we call tyranny. This is what we call repressing the public, pretty much. And it has its roots years and years ago, prior to Obama. It's kind of control. It's just he's put it in an exponential fashion. ObamaCare, DeadOnArrival, prescription for disaster, is what is here right now in front of you. And when you go to that emergency room come 2014, instead of being treated the way you should be treated, there's going to be all kinds of rules and regulations for doctors not to treat, and that not to treat is how they save the money. And I could spend hours on this if you guys want to do it some other time. I just don't want to bore everybody with the technicalities of it, but it's there. The book has it, and the book talks about the Canadian system, about the ObamaCare system that was put up, and all kinds of how it is to go through medical, what doctors have to go through, that your nieces, your nephews, your moms, whoever's a doctor in your family, what they had to go through to strive to get that MD. And as soon as they get out of school, they are targeted by the lawyers. There's a big target on your back. And that's what I see. And the judicial system in many states, like this blue state of Maryland, tend to go against physicians here. We're the ones that are paying their taxes and paying their salaries and stuff, and they beat us down. And I've seen so many doctors just get so demoralized they will leave practice. Excellent physicians who help thousands and thousands of people. And the thing is, it's not always going to be a positive outcome on every patient. I wish it was, but that's fantasy land. And the public needs to understand that we do the best we can, 99% of us, but sometimes it just doesn't turn out that way. The nature, through the physiological processes of disease or whatever.
I want to catch people up on a couple of things. One, you talked about Mark Levin. He's the one that got the law, or his situation, got the law in New York, the Levin law, that what happens between you and your doctor is your business. They tried to trump up charges on him and get somebody to testify against him that turned on the government in court. The devastating thing is he lost his practice, he lost hundreds of thousands of doctors. So you do something like you're doing, and they'll come after you. IRS, any other which direction.
Sure. You're absolutely right. I've been audited like a half a dozen times. I don't make a lot of money. What kind of money do I make? I live in a middle class house here in northern Maryland, out in the woods somewhere. I don't have a lot of money. I drove a 2001 RAV. They come after me regularly. They go after people that I write for the media. Excuse me. I've written 300 articles on all kinds of stuff, healthcare politics, things like that. They read this stuff, and before you know it, I find my name here, there, on this list, that list, just against me. Anything they take, it looks like that little piece up on Amazon, which hopefully we could drown out as a group.
Well, I'm
Yes,
looking
you're
at
absolutely correct. You are right on it 100%.
I'm looking at the Kindle version, which I just downloaded and will spend my time reading it. But let's go back to the other versions. Maybe I can, and show people what they're doing. Here is the paperback version. Now on Kindle, there is no negative review.
No, it's up on the other readers. And one review up there that somebody put up there with 1 star. It's not even a review. It's a negative diatribe. He may not like my political writings that are read by thousands and tens of thousands of people every time I write an article. He may be a competing author. I don't know. He may be a publisher's representative. He may be a minion from the Obama administration. I just don't know. And these people seem to come out of the woodwork when you're trying to do something positive. They try to pull you down any way they can. And this is unfortunate that someone will do some garbage like this. And then the public knows they've had their own experiences with negative people. And there are lots of negative people in society. And no matter what you try to do to help them out, they're still going to be negative. So that's what this is. And I wish I could find out who this guy is. I really like to know if it's a competing author or something like that. I've complained. Lots of people who have well more force than I do have complained about this particular 1-star deal, because the other people that are coming on board like the book. They think it's a good book. It's not Fitzgerald. It's not Aldous Huxley. It's not a high piece of literature. It's an informative book. That's what it was designed for. Just like my other books, they're informative books, and that's all. We wrote a book called Demons of Democracy. It has a very unique cover. If people get to see it, they could probably figure out who's on the cover. And it came out in 2011, which is still current, all the information. And it goes into stuff that's been going on and on and on and on. And part of it talks about healthcare and how lawyers have controlled healthcare all these years, all these decades, and now they're entrenched with it. I mean, probably a third of the legal profession makes their salaries just going against physicians, hospitals, nursing homes, and things. It just got really, really bad. I don't know why anybody would want to be a physician now.
Obama is an attorney. I have lots of friends who are attorneys, and they say they are seeing a total trend, and always have seen it, that if you don't have any evidence, you attack the person. That's what they're doing. But on the other side of this, as many people as go in and read this and comment on it, you move up in Amazon standings. So we're going to look at that and see.
Yeah, if we can get a zillion people up there, that would go a long way. If we could earn enough revenue from this book, it's not an expensive book, and we're going to do some commercials on it. People will begin to understand what they're up against. No one has done any commercials against ObamaCare that I've seen. The public, the people in the chat rooms or something, and all about it. I don't know. I haven't seen them up on YouTube. I haven't seen them up on other video places or on the TV. But if we do something that is like the cover of this book, which is done by a commercial artist, hopefully was conservative, we can make a real impact against this stuff. I'm going to send some copies up to the Congress to look at as well. I just ordered some more copies of the book. So hopefully we can make a big impact doing radio, doing shows like this. We're really, really good to do and get the word out. And we really appreciate it, by the way.
We have a question from our audience that says, I've heard that the IRS is going to be making decisions about health care. Is this true?
Yeah. Well, what they do is they have the hammer, the financial hammer. They don't specifically make decisions about health care. What they do is it forces you to move in one direction. As an example, a young person they're telling you to go out and buy insurance so they can support the person on the opposite end of the age group. If he doesn't do that, the IRS has the ability to go after you for the penalty. They can't do much right now. Their hammer is very, very small right now for the individual. In other words, they can't lien your house, your car, your student, your loans in your bank, whatever. But the IRS specifically has no ability under the present legislation, the way it's formatted, to make any health decisions for you. They have the ability to make financial decisions for you and forcing you. Let's say you're an employee with 150 people. If you got less than 49 people, they can't do anything to you anyway. You don't have to carry insurance for people. I think it's a good idea for employers to help people have insurance. That's not the issue. The issue is when it's forced down on you. For the 50 or more person to be hammered very badly with penalties that could really destroy a company if they're not paid. So it's the financial hammer that they have that forces you to buy a product that you may not want. It's not the ability of the IRS right now to do treatment plans or tell hospitals what to do, what not to do, insurance companies what not to do in terms of the health care that they provide. But they do it on the other side by putting penalties and sanctions against hospital doctors and all that stuff if they don't do the financial aspects of the IRS wanted to. It's more complicated than just forcing people to buy insurance. As an example, insurance companies have to have certain types of paperwork in that they're not spending more than 15% on administrative costs, just as an example. Okay, so if you spend 13%, you're holding that money and not telling the government that you're holding on to that extra 2% or whatever, which could be millions. You could be sanctioned very badly by the government, up to $1 million a day in some cases, and it's all enumerated in the book in the legislation as it stands right now. So the polls are very intuitive in terms of the IRS has a certain ability on the financial aspects, but not on the medical aspects as of yet. But that could change with an executive order. So, great question, really great question.
I'm going to give you 2 examples of things that people need to be concerned about. When I turned 65, we got a letter from our insurance company saying that we had to sign up for Medicaid or Medicare, I can't remember which one, or we could not continue having insurance with them, and we've had this insurance for almost 40 years through my husband's work with the telephone company. And when we went in to sign up, they required, 1, that I give them all my banking information because we're going to direct deposit, and 2, that they be allowed to go into my bank account at any time they so pleased. So what I do when that money comes in, I take it out in cash and I spend it the way I want to spend it because I think that's just their way of trying to monitor what people are doing. So my way around it, when I just yelled and screamed, you don't have access to my account. And they said, well, you're not getting anything. And in that case, I don't get any insurance. So I take the money out, and I would encourage other people to do that too.
I don't think people really understand what exchanges do. First of all, you don't even know what you're exchanging your money for because there are no set policies out there exactly what Obama wants in those policies. Secondly, people that have been applying on the exchanges and putting their money out, the money may not even be getting to the right place. They may not even have insurance. They have to go behind the exchange, call the insurance company, make sure there's a policy enforced, get the physical policy from them. They said 25% of people were just giving their bank account numbers away. It's being hacked. And there's this article this morning up on Drudge that people go to Drudge and they'll see it about people hacking these kind of accounts, and the government misapplying the money, and the government going in and taking money, not supplying anything. It's a very convoluted process, and it's still not working as ordered. Now, 14 states have their own exchanges. Here in Maryland, it failed miserably. They spent over $100 million to what I don't know, and whether they have for it, they have nothing to show for it. They had the Maryland Exchange quit. The second head is up on charges. It's insane. The 14 states, as far as I know, have their own exchanges. They're not working well. The federal exchange is not working well. Yet they have the audacity to put these things online before they were ready to go. And then if you can't get through, you're still subject to the penalties. So insanity on top of irrationality is what we have in front of us right now. So
people need to know that if you can't get through, you're still subject to the penalties. So they are fining us for something that they won't tell us the rules for or allow us access to.
Now, the Supreme Court, June 28, 2012, said, no, you can't use the commerce law, which allows interstate commerce to force you to buy insurance, but they can use their taxing authority to get what they want. And that's how Justice Stevens left it in. So right now, the Supreme Court allows ObamaCare to go on based on the federal government's taxing authority. But that could change. Within the structure of the ruling, which is in the book, Justice Stevens' ruling is at the addendum in the book, He left the window open for them to come back in and relitigate this because the taxing authority for a specific part of the bill hasn't gone into effect yet. By 2014 it will, so that will give initiation to more lawsuits to go back to the Supreme Court. But people don't understand that there have already been a dozen new taxes applied. Some of them have nothing to do with health care at all. And where that money is going to go, I have no idea. Most people could posture it's going to the entitlement structures around us. And again, we know the need of social net in case people fail, poverty, children need to be fed, things like that. No one's arguing that. But this huge social network of entitlements that are out there is killing America. And if the government fails, if the money fails, the entitlement system fails. Just a logic jumps from one to the other. So if capitalism fails and being suppressed by a government, there's not enough money coming in, and eventually what happened in Greece is going to happen here. What happened in Spain, Portugal, and other countries is going to happen here.
I have two more questions, and then I want to talk to you about people getting in touch with you. One, this was on the news last night. ObamaCare regulations has deemed that if firefighters or anybody who's a volunteer works more than 30 hours, that the company they're volunteering to must provide health insurance to them. That is stupid. These people are not employees, yet the law states that these volunteer fire departments that are on a shoestring already have to supply health care for them. So they either cut back on the amount of hours they work, or they lie, as people are encouraging them to do, or we have no firefighters out here in the middle of nowhere when we can barely support the truck and the gasoline. ObamaCare made this possible for you folks.
Yeah, well, Obama should have heard. He has to know this, and what he should have done is put one of those executive orders that he's amended the other pieces. It's immediately. It's insanity. All the fire departments across the country, about 88%, I understand, are volunteer or partially volunteer companies. And these guys deserve better, and these gals deserve better, and they're not getting it. Someone in Congress should have had the, allow me to use the language, forgive me, folks, the cojones, to go in, write a piece of legislation, and run that through Congress in an hour to stop that kind of nonsense, because we're going to need our firefighters. We always need our firefighters, union, non-union, whatever, with all that nonsense out there. We need our firefighters. We need our police. We need our sanitation people. We need our protective authorities out there. And what they're doing is crippling the most needed people in this country, and that firefighters especially. May not need them for 50 years, but you need them for that one instant. And that's what they're there for, to help us out. And they're a bunch of good people on call. Most of these guys are on call 24/7. I don't know if people realize the system for volunteer firefighting. I've heard some of the interviews. I understand their plight, and Congress should have picked that up immediately. But they didn't, because they're a lame Congress without any backbone. They're all a bunch of yellow bellies up there.
Can we, the people, or if anybody here on chat, if we, the people, can start a movement against Obamacare? But we're running out of time here, but I want to ask you a question. I don't know if you can answer. Take all the money that has been shoveled down this rat hole for putting Obamacare together and paying for these commercials, stupid commercials. How many people could they have covered for a year who didn't have health care in the first place?
Millions. And you know why? It's a $600 million just to put the failed exchange together. They've been pumping commercials about this everywhere. Bilingual commercials. And these are commercials outside the country. I understood that there was a commercial in Mexico about health care here for America. It's unbelievable. So that's the first level. The mechanism, the bureaucracy that they're setting up already has cost billions of dollars. Now think of how much money the average guy costs for insurance, with $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year for an individual. Then multiply that for how many people could it be covered. And you go into the tens of billions of dollars. The bureaucracy itself is costing more than the health care being provided. It's crazy. So it's a great question. The numbers are out there, and we don't know. I mean, no one knows. But I would say millions right now from this pulpit where I'm sitting. So, and that's again what we cover in the book, the waste. Government's going after doctors who are they claim are wasting money or cheating the system. And I would grant you there's a small percentage of crooks in my field and in every other field. But the vast majority of physicians and nurses and nurse practitioners and whatever, they do a good job and they should be rewarded, not be penalized by something piece of garbage like this. And that's how I look at it. And hopefully we'll be able to get the word out even more.
Look at what the IRS did and sent billions of dollars to the same address in some eastern country, probably for gun running. And if they're so stupid to do that and send it to dead people and to people in jail that don't deserve it, they're certainly not deserving of taking care of our most precious health.
There was a group in Florida, I believe it was Guatemala, but hopefully you can correct me if I'm wrong, who were getting tens of millions of dollars in false claims for Medicare. How they did this, how the government could not pick that up, I don't understand. And they all dispersed somehow. I don't think anybody's been arrested. They went back to their home countries. If a doctor is out of line by $10, they'd be down his throat with a SWAT team in a minute. That's the way the system is.
Do you want people to get in touch with you personally, or do you want them to go to your website or Amazon?
We have, if they have a question for me, they can go to PlatoMD at gmail.com. It's PlatoMD@gmail.com, all one word, Plato like the philosopher. If they get a copy of the book and they want to sign or something, I could be happy to do that. If they want to order a copy through me, that's fine too, PlatoMD@gmail.com. It's basic charge. I think the book is $12.99 up there on Amazon, something like that. It's really inexpensive. The book is available through Barnes & Noble, most bookstores. If they don't have it, they'll order it. If they order enough copies, they'll carry it in stock so people can see it. And we don't have the crowd that a Mark Levin has by having a show that broadcasts all over the country. So we need to work very hard to get our word out. And our word is a good word. It's a solid word. It's something that people should read and understand what's coming to America right now. And the full brunt of it has not hit the country yet. The tidal wave, which is phase 2, is coming. So you can get the book most places just by ordering it, or go to Amazon. If you go to Amazon, please put a little extra up there how you feel your opinion. Your opinion carries a lot, believe it or not. And certainly, I'd be happy if you did that.
We have a comment by one of our very loyal listeners, George H., and he says it costs $1 to access that list of people in prison, people who are dead. So instead of sending the $1 to access that list, the government spent billions sending money to people they weren't supposed to. That shows the ineptitude, the stupidity of what's going on.
My dad, at his time, passed away many years ago. His Social Security check kept coming. I told my sisters, my twin sisters, my identical twin sisters, do not spend that money. Put the money in an account. It took them 17 months. We sent them a death certificate and all this stuff. Did everything. There was an attorney who charged next to nothing, but so helped us out. And it took 17 months to stop the checks from coming. That's how inept these people are. And it's crazy. And the ineptitude in the government is so huge that you can't conceive it. Even if you're a hardened Democrat, even if you're a hardened Libertarian or Republican or whatever your color of politics is, we have an inefficient government at the minimum, and it's outrageous. It's outrageous. And you shouldn't allow them to control your health care. And there's words in the book about people not getting chemotherapy, high blood pressure, medications, cardiological drugs, things like this. And if we go to the Canadian system, which is approved now, by the way, the Canadian is picking because the public system doesn't work as well. But they're letting private practice come in up there. Then we're real in trouble. You have to wait 6 months to a year for a hernia surgery. It's just insane.
We have one question. I have to ask you this because it's been on my mind too. And there are so many people behind you on this chat. It's incredible the things they're going to do for you. But Lisa asks, are there really death panels?
No. Very good question. I'm glad you brought that up. If you allow me just a few minutes on it, the historical aspect and perspective. In 2009, Sarah Palin, bless her soul, she came forward and said there's death panels in this legislation. Well, if she had an intuitive insight into something that she may or may not have read, there's no death panel per se. What they do, they reduce the level of care as you get older. They're going to tell you that you don't need this, you don't need that. I cover this in the book. You don't need certain surgeries, you don't need certain medications.
You don't need them or you can't have them?
Well, both. Both, because they've generated studies saying that for the prostate as a dip, most men get older, their prostates get larger, some men get cancer. It's a long-standing cancer for prostate. Generally, you die from something else, not the prostate cancer. But anyway, so they generated studies saying you don't need this, you don't need mammograms until you're later in life, you don't need cataract surgeries for this. So they delay it. And delaying something that's very needed could cause death in and of itself. So there's rationing to the older people. And what they've done is I describe a sequence of words called biological value. As you get older, you have less input into society. You're less valuable to society. It's a horrible thing to say, but that's how they look at it. So if you have a less of biological value because you're not contributing the finances that you did when you were in your working period of time, you should get less care. That is implied within the structure of the ObamaCare. So they can't necessarily say, hey, look, you can't have anything. What they do is try to phase things out. They try to make it harder for you to get. They create studies that indicate that maybe the validity of these procedures, that procedure, especially in the older age range, is not there. So that's where the death panels come. Secondly, they've instructed doctors through literature coming from the HHS to discuss end-of-life issues with patients if they want. And there's actual fee, I believe, involved. A doctor gets paid $30 to try to prepare people to die in their mind, in a more appropriate fashion. Not the fashion I would want to. If I find someone, I did geriatrics for years. Remember, I owned and operated health facilities, and these are huge facilities, and not little corner places. And the government will come and say, "You can't have this. You can't do that. Here's how you do this." Their surveyors were trained. They were a nurse or someone else, and given a short period of training, and they try to tell the doctors what they have to do. And if you buck them, if you don't do what they want you to do, you find yourself up for charges against the medical board, or you find your Medicare fees reduced or even eliminated. So they have penalties and sanctions in the law. If you don't follow the agenda that the government comes along, you're inhibited in some way, fashion. So this is something. There's no outright death panel. What they do is they circumvent that by putting other elements in there that make it seem as they want to expedite you to the next world.
We are there. We've got one person saying if we took away the care, maybe we would actually live longer because of all the iatrogenic and nosocomial.
You want to know how to live longer? I'll tell people. I wrote a book, The Millennium Diet, which was never supposed to be published. It was just for my 4,000 plus patients who ran the spectrum of as average people like myself to actresses, actors, judges, police officers, whatever. And there's a finding in the literature now that a high-protein, restricted calorie, low-carb diet, about 10 to 15% fat in the diet, may actually help people live longer. They know it in lab animals. It's true. A restricted diet with high protein helps many lab animals, rats, mice, herbivores, live longer than their litter mates. But we know there's something to do with diet, and I would advise people to read some more longevity literature because it's really interesting. It's bordering on science fiction already because you're going to have people living well beyond 20, probably within 100 years or less. On the average, it was like right now it's like 78 to 80, depending on the society you're in. That will be the norm. Middle age will become 80. It's like you're listening to something really odd and bizarre, but it's not. We're moving in that direction. Through pharmaceuticals and diet, we're going to live a lot longer than we are right now.
And it's called Morning what?
The Millennium Diet. Millennium Diet has a very unusual cover, and if you look at the cover, there was another great commercial artist. We have some very talented people in this country who know how to design a book cover. And it's been out there, and I gave feedback. It was on four. It was selling for a while on 4 different continents. It got really popular.
Millennium, George.
Sorry again.
I was just repeating it for somebody in chat.
The Millennium Guide, the Practical Guide for Rapid Weight Loss. The Millennium Guide, the Practical Guide for Rapid Weight Loss. I didn't come on your show just to push a book or anything like that. It's gotten very popular, and there's a Kindle. I think there's a Kindle version up there. You can get it for a few dollars if you want it. It's a great little book. It's 120 pages. It's an easy read, and it tells you all the do's and don'ts. If people are on diet pills, as an example, it gives all the structure about diet pills, which ones not to use. Probably 90% of the diet pills out there are phony baloney and worthless. And there's a few that are worth something, and you should go at. That's the most. But the diet itself is constructed by trial and error through thousands of patients, and the patients actually wrote this book, not the doctor here. It was so good to me about it, because they tried all kinds of stuff before they came into the Millennium Diet. Is a great little book. It's still current, and it was enjoyed by thousands of people. They really liked it. So I was surprised that there was so many people wanted this book. Thanks to the patients. Thanks to people like people in chat rooms and stuff. We get our word out too. We, sometimes we don't need the big wigs to help us. Word of mouth is a great thing.
Well, people here love you. We're behind you. We're going to stay in touch. We certainly appreciate you being here on Happy Hour, where we do our work live for our audience. I think this next week we are going to be examining the voices of the people associated with Benghazi and see who's lying. And then the week after that, we're going to be doing information about fibromyalgia. We certainly appreciate you as an audience and being here and putting up with all of this trash that happened with the system that we're trying to use. We are going to stay in touch with Dr. Davis. We're going to redo this whole thing and answer some of your questions, put it up on our site, and we're going to get him on every show that we possibly can. We appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate you being the spearhead out there and willing to take all these hits and all this abuse, and we're going to see to it that you have all of this to fall back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We love what you're doing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. My privilege. Yeah. Good.
Bye all. For all of you who are on WebEx with us, I would suggest that you go to the chat, click, do Control-A, and then Control-C for copy. There's a tremendous amount of information and links there. Anybody listening just on Blog Talk, I will send that to you if you'll write me a note. It's just Sherry Edwards, SHARRY Edwards @gmail.com. And hope you're with us next time.